The most important thing is look inside yourself, not look outside. Because anything comes, if you are strong enough inside, you can getting through.
Hello and welcome to the Auto Ethnographer. I'm John Stech, your host on this journey. We travel the globe to bring you stories about culture and the global automotive industry. Fasten your seatbelt and let's get started. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Auto Ethnographer. This week I have not one, but two fantastic guests, and they're located almost totally on the opposite sides of the planet from each other. One is in Arizona in the United States, and the other one is in Hanoi, Vietnam. Both are experts in the human resources and talent recruiting fields, and we're going to tackle the topic of ageism, which is something that's been popping up in my life a lot more, given that peers are reaching out and talking to me about it. I want to look at it from the perspective of culture and how ageism is reflected in different cultures around the globe. As the pace of technology increases, birth rates are decreasing, and populations age, there's got to be a shift. We're going to talk about age in the workplace and compare the history, the status, and future expectations in the United States and Vietnam. So now let me introduce the guests. Tamica Sears is joining us from Arizona in the United States. She's known to many as the corporate fixer. I love that title. Tamica is a powerhouse in the world of human resources and executive coaching with over 20 years of experience of transforming leaders across Fortune 500 companies and grassroots organizations alike. She operates Sears Consulting based on experience that she's gained at Fortune 500 companies like Raytheon and Gannett, among others. Her mission? To help people lead with authenticity, empathy, and innovation. She's guided teams through mergers, strategic shifts, and leadership development programs that don't just check boxes, but they actually change the culture. She's a proud mom, a dog lover, and maybe we'll even see or hear from Duke at some point, and a fierce advocate for inclusive workplaces. And I have to say, she's the author of a provocatively titled book called How to Tell If You're an Asshole Boss. And I do want to point out, I have probably the only copy in Thailand. I read the
You
book.
gotta change that.
I read the book, and I know several people that I would have given it to over the course of my career, and I might have to do that retroactively. So now swinging many time zones ahead and joining us from Vietnam is Kelvin Nguyen, as he is known in English. A dynamic force in Vietnam's world of executive search and human capital strategy, he's a talent acquisition expert. He's spent over a decade helping companies navigate the complexities of talent acquisition, leadership development, and organizational transformation in one of Asia's fastest evolving markets. His work bridges global best practices with deep local insight in Vietnam, making him a go-to advisor for multinational firms and Vietnamese enterprises alike. He's garnered vast experience with VinGroup, which is Vietnam's largest private company with over 50,000 employees. And in full transparency, I have previously worked at VinGroup's electric vehicle division, VinFast, where I actually met Kelvin. Kelvin is a co-founder at Pharaon, a premier lifestyle management service that helps high-performing individuals and executives reclaim their time and enhance their day-to-day lives. At Pharaon, Kelvin brings his HR insights into a new business idea, supporting busy professionals, not only in their work, but in their overall well-being, productivity, and fulfillment. This holistic approach gives him a unique vantage point, for example, on today's topic of ageism, as well as work-life balance and the evolving needs of multi-generational workforces. So Tamica, Kelvin, welcome to the Auto Ethnographer. It's great to have you here.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, John. It's great to be here.
I especially appreciate the fact that we've pulled you together over, I think it's a 14-hour time zone difference
Yeah,
from
yeah. Even the
from
arrangement is like very difficult. Yeah.
great. So let's dive right in. I think let's set the stage with the first question, which is, and I'll start with you, Tamica, from a U.S. perspective. how would you define ageism in the context of America's workforce?
So ageism, it's when people are prejudiced and discriminate against someone based on their age. Um, Typically, you think of this as older people, but there have been some states recently that have passed laws that say that you are committing ageism, criminally, legally, if you are treating someone differently because of their age if they are 18 plus, which I thought was really interesting because when you think of ageism, you don't think of somebody discriminating against or being prejudiced against like the young people, but there does come in that like when the millennials entered the workforce, like people are like, oh, these young whippersnappers. So it's I can see it, but I definitely do think that it in the workplace it is more hurtful and harmful to the older generations.
Okay, and I think that's probably how many people envision ageism.
Hmm.
When they hear the word. How about you, Kelvin? In Vietnam, what how do you think that ageism would be defined in the context of Vietnam's workforce?
So yeah, based on the culture, I think like Vietnam and the US is kind of different in cultures. For Vietnamese, age is like represent for experience. So basically, before in like 10 or 20 years before, like people with age mean that they have experience in the workforce and they are appreciated by most of the companies. But with the advancement of technologies and AI, things changing like dramatically in the last 5 years, and like in the last 2 years, it's like totally changed because like now people with technology skills and like they can use AI. The young people they have much more advantage. So even people with experience they can be replaced by young people with like the suitable skills for the organizations, because for most of the companies and organizations efficiency is like the most important thing they're looking for in this very challenging world nowadays. So yeah, even with the culture that like appreciate the age the experience, it cannot avoid the fact that many professional with experience now are being replaced by the young people with like technology skills.
And how about in the United States, Tamika? Is that something that's similar, or is it a
Oh,
more
that's been
long-term
a
issue
while.
of yeah?
Yeah, that's been happening for a while. I feel like anytime there's any sort of advancing technology, it's viewed as the older you are, the less likely you are to know that, and so the less likely you are to be hired.
Which I guess it makes sense. I mean, it's always plays into these stereotypes, right? It's not
Right,
necessarily looking into whether someone actually knows something, but if they fit into somebody's perceived stereotype.
right.
So you mentioned, Tamika, a few moments ago about legislation to protect American
Hmm.
workers, but how effective is that really? Does it really help in curbing workplace ageism?
No, I think like many of the other isms, there's a lot that you have to do to prove that that is the reason why. Thankfully, there are some employers that say stupid things like, you know, why don't you just retire? And then 2 weeks later, like they fire the person. So that's kind of blatant. But outside of that, it can be really difficult to prove that that was the reason why you were terminated. In most states, you can be terminated for any reason except an illegal one. And so they just find one that's not illegal.
And then in follow up to that, that's when people are already in the company and being protected. But what about like tech centric industries? How does age influence the hiring or the retention policies there,
Yeah, there's a
given
lot
that tech is
there.
developing so quickly?
Looking at like the age that you graduated from college, that's a big thing. And people will just kind of, if it's a 19, like they don't care, right? Like you're tossed out. And so that is one thing that I do kind of recommend to people is leave those dates off to give yourself a little bit of a better chance to get the interview. But also when you have a full resume and you've been working for, 20, 30 years, your resume starts with the things you did in the 1900s, as they say now. So automatically people are like, oh, that's an old guy. Do we really want him? So sometimes it doesn't matter. Like your most recent experience could be you are like doing the most up-to-date technical work, but you're just kind of disregarded because of what it looks like you did and what it looks like your age is.
Right now, that I've experienced that personally, seeing companies that have made IT department shifts purely based on age. So, Calvin, looking back at Vietnam, you talked a little bit about the traditional values, about elder respect. How
Mhm.
does that shape the corporate dynamics today? You said that it's really changed over the last 2 years. So there must be some
Yes.
conflict between traditional values and what's happening now with respect to the hiring of tech workers specifically.
Yep. All right, so I think there are some reasons for change in like recent years. Firstly, you know that Vietnam now like becoming more and more like a hub for international firms to invest in and to like move their headquarters and factories here to Vietnam. So basically, the cultures is also influenced by like the overseas factors. And secondly, the world's changing so quickly, so all the companies and organizations have to be adapt with the like change in the world, and they have to put their efficiencies in the first priority of like organizational like strategy. So with that, I think that like of course I think like the government and also company still try to protect the labor, like the worker, the laborers, like and people working for them. But like when they have to push efficiency at first, they have to like consider the factors like age, like the right skills, the suitable skills, and at the end of the day, the ability to like bring the result to the organizations to meet their KPI and the expectation for their stakeholders and for like the like investors. So of course there will be change, and it cannot be avoided even with the like a country with like a very long history of appreciating the like aged people.
So what place is there for older workers? What place do they tend to occupy in Vietnamese companies?
Actually, there will be still like a lot of older workers. They have like position like senior position at the companies in Vietnam, but mostly it's like like state-owned company or like local company where relationship play a very important role in working like environment. But for younger company, for startup, for tech startup, and for like international companies, and also Vietnamese company that looking for international expansion, it's totally different because at the end of the day, results pick it all. And the like the importance of AI and tech skills now in making results happen. Before you can like based on your experience, based on like your relationship with like internal and external stakeholders to bring results to the companies. But now you have to combine a lot of skills including AI, including tech, in order to make it quick. So I think one of the keyword here is it is about speed. Before, some tasks can like make for like can be done for like 2 or 3 weeks, but now with the support of AI, with the support of like technologies, it can be done in 3 days. And if like a senior worker, a senior professionals, they are not like quick enough to equip themselves with technology skills, with AI skill, of course, they will be replaced, and it's like a mega trend over the world. And I don't think it can be avoided in any nation, any culture. and the same for Vietnam.
No, thank you very much for the insights. It's not necessarily what someone would expect, but clearly the world is changing. Um, I want to move on a little bit to corporate culture and HR practices in general. Tamika, how do you think ageism appears, for example, in day to day HR decisions, like in recruitment or promotion or
Hmm.
training, from a U.S. perspective?
Oh gosh, I mean, I've been in conversations where people will say, "Oh, do we really want to promote John? He's only going to be here for another 3 or 4 years." Right? And that's some of the things I'm like, but if he's the guy, he's the guy. Like, get 3 or 4 good years out of him and help him train the next person. Um, and in hiring, again, Kelvin talked about things getting done fast. And I think that there is just this overall thought and picture that you don't think of the person, with gray hair getting something done fast. And I think that that's just the total prejudice that just colors a lot of these decisions. Is just the assumption that the person's not going to be able to learn the technology. They're not going to be able to do it as fast. They're not going to be efficient. Um, like I do feel like they expect someone who is, over 40 to show up with a notebook and a pen and not know how to use a computer. Like, and that's just not really the case.
I will raise my hand and say that I went 100% paperless in 2015. So I have a decade of no more paper, no more pen. In
Yeah.
fact, my handwriting has suffered for it.
Same here.
Yes. Um, how about for you on your side, Kelvin? How do you see ageism go? Make its way into HR decisions on a daily basis, like recruitment, where you're an expert, or promotion or training.
Yeah, I read a story on LinkedIn yesterday. The LinkedIn of like a Vietnamese professional, and he complained that before some month before, people are worrying about like when they get over 45 years old, it's very difficult for them to get a job. But now it's become 35, not 45 anymore. So it's changing like very quickly. And you know that, as I said before, it's not about the age. It's about the adaptability and the ability to learn things quickly. I'm in my 35 years old, area now, and I totally, understand that it's not just about tech in marketing field. Like the young people now, they have different behavior, they have different chance, they have different factors for them to like make the decision to buy things. Like before, for us, we have a lot of other, factors to decide to buy something, and the marketings work totally different before. But now they make a very, very quick decision to buy things with the development of platform like TikTok or like other social platform, and then they making decisions to buy something in like 3 to 5 seconds. That like causes before like even a week to think about that. So it's not just about that. It's about the mindset, the behavior, the way of thinking about the world is totally different now. And even people in their 30s, if they are not adapt quickly, if they are not having the ability to learn things quickly, to adapt themselves quickly in the very quickly changing world, they're gonna be like in a very dangerous position. Before, people like us, we watch the movie for 1.5 hour, 2 hours, and we enjoy it. Nowadays, young people they enjoy the clip for they enjoy the video for 30 seconds. So the words changing from the mindset, and the mindset is changing from the platform, and of course it affects the age of the professionals that working around the world and also in Vietnam.
That's a fantastic observation, linking the development of platforms with the consumer and even generational behavior. I really like that.
Hmm.
Um, Just a very quick question then, in follow up, Tamika. Stereotypes. We mentioned the word earlier. Um, what pops to mind really quickly when it comes to a stereotype that you or your team have encountered?
Yeah, so it's the gray hair. I dye my hair. Like I'm like, if there's any gray, I'm like, get it out of here, right? Because I fully understand that people see gray hair and they're immediately like, this woman has no idea what she's talking about. She's in the dinosaur age, right? So it's stereotypes are so prevalent, and people just they will make up their minds immediately. You know, I got Botox a few months ago, right? Because it's like I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to really show my age here. And it's funny because I don't say how many actual years of experience I have because it will make me sound too old. Yeah,
Which
so
is so
it's
perverse. I mean, that's
yeah, yeah.
perverse in a way.
Yeah, and
So,
people have said, like, oh, I don't care that you have 30 years of experience. It's what you're doing now that matters.
right. And what about you, Kelvin? Stereotype. What pops up quickly in your mind? What would be a stereotype in Vietnam with regards to ageism?
In Vietnam, one of the keywords that most of the HR professional focus on right now is the Gen Z, Generation Z's, because the behavior, even the language they use, and the mindset about workplace is totally different. I think that for people even in 30s or 40 in like generation millennials or before, the working behavior is totally different because we are more patient. We spend more time at work, and we like move the ladders in a very patient manner. But now for the like young people, they're looking for different values when they're looking for work, when they're looking for the right place to work for them. They're looking for purpose. They're looking for reputation. They're looking for the quick way, the short way for them to show themselves to the world. And in order to do that, I think that they're looking for growth hacking ways of working. And in order to do some growth hacking things, they have to apply technologies, they have to apply the new mindset in the way that they work. And like for senior professional to manage the young generation is also totally different, and it's very difficult if they are not adapt well with the new behavior of younger professional now. The young professional, they can leave a company just because they don't have you know uh, a good place in the office for them to like have peaceful in their mind. uh, I mean that they love themselves more, and they're looking for like the work-life balance definition is totally different now for them as well. Before, we're just looking for like if we have the weekend for the family, but now they have time for themselves. They should have time for themselves during the day, even at work. So I think the line between work and life for young professional nowadays is not like as clear as before. That's why many companies have to design their office, that like the place for them to, can enjoy themselves as well at work. And the way that the managers, the senior people behave with younger professional have to be like also adapt, because they can leave the company now just because a saying of the managers, if if it's like touch the ego, and because they have like many other opportunity. So sometimes I have to be like brother, sometimes I have to be like father to my staffs, to understand what they need, to understand like what they feel like, to understand. I even have to learn their language in order to like to understand them and to talk to them, to communicate to them. And I think in any generation, in any period of time, the communication is very important in any workplace. And it's also decide it's a vital factor that decide like the sustainability and also like the efficiency of the company. And for senior professional that's still working, that's still in the leadership position, I think they have to like focus on adapt things quickly with the younger generation.
No, I think absolutely. I think you're on target there. Tamika, following up on that, in the U.S. With older workers, do they even get opportunities for reskilling or leadership development? I mean, Kelvin talked a lot just now about they have to adapt even to work with the younger generation. What do you see
Right.
in terms of these opportunities for them?
I don't see them. I think that kind of similar. People are very focused on what are we going to do for Gen Z, like how we're going to make Gen Z comfortable. What are we going to do to get Gen Z, in here and learn the communication skills and learn this. But I don't think there is anywhere near the investment in workers who are mid-career or senior at all. You just don't see that as much. It really is focused on um, the emerging leaders, developing leaders, and I don't know if that's because they think that the others are doing just great, which, they're not. But there is such a focus on Gen Z, but I also think they're focusing on some of the wrong things. Like Kelvin talked about how they're being treated, and that they want to be treated differently than some of the other workers. And I read something, an article that there are more like Gen Z professionals, like people at work, living at home with their parents now than there ever were like younger workers living at home. And so that's part of it is like when you are younger, you're living at home, your bills are paid for. If you can start an Instagram channel and make $2,000 a month, that's enough for you to live off of when you're with your parents. So if you go to work and your boss is mean to you, you're not going to stay. And I try to get some leaders to understand that with the younger generation, like you have to be kind, right? And it's not well, I went through it, so they have to go through it. Um, but I do think that we're also paving the way for madness because if we continue to treat the younger generation as we do, in 10 years, when they're the ones making the decisions, we are double screwed.
I was actually going to ask about implications, but I think you expressed that one quite clearly. What about on your side, Kelvin, in Vietnam? Implications for companies that don't address or deal with the topic of age diversity. Do you see there to be an issue there in Vietnam?
Yeah, I think that like most of the companies in Vietnam that I know aware of like the differentiation between age in the workplace. So they have like HR strategy to deal with that. And to build the culture, to build the company image, to build the like employment branding kind of things, to attract the right talents for them is very important. Like strategy that most of the company aware of. At the end of the day, I think that it's not about age. It's about the combination of the skills. So most of the company I know, even my own companies or like the company I'm working for, is still like the combination between experience, skilled, and the new mindset. And as a leader of the company, they have to combine very well between those factors. If in a company they are like all young people and they're using like new mindset to do things, technologies to do things, but if they have no experience, it's still no going nowhere, and vice versa. If a company having experience and they're having like the old way of working that working well before, but like the new generation of consumers going into the market, and if they don't have like younger talents, they're gonna going down. So I think for the leaders of the company, it's like like pressures. They have to combine very well between the different factors to make like to guide the company going ahead. And age is one of the like most important factor they have to like doing the purchase in their companies.
So, on your side, from the Vietnamese perspective, you're saying that there are benefits to having age inclusive teams, and they perform differently. How do you see that in the U.S., Tamika? Do you feel
I
that there is a difference in performance?
oh, absolutely. Because the older generation doesn't necessarily know what speaks to that younger generation, but the younger generation sometimes doesn't have the experience to actually get the work done. Um, I don't know if you watched the Netflix documentary on the Titan, the submersible that imploded. You know,
I have
one
not.
of the biggest problems there was you had someone who wanted, adoration, so they hired a bunch of young people to adore them and you know try to do the work, and then got rid of the older people, the more experienced people that could point out that there were problems and that things weren't going to work. And so with that, there was like literally a complete and utter fatality disaster. So it can be that bad. Like definitely do need the fresh ideas, but you also need that kind of guiding hand to say, if this, then this, because sometimes the younger people don't know the if then.
Right. I think in follow up to that, and I think I know the answer to this already, but I'll ask it anyway. Um, what plays a greater role in American HR policy regarding age? Is it the cultural consideration, or is it really just the legal risk and the exposure?
It's the legal risk and exposure. I think that if people just I think that if there were no laws and people could do whatever they wanted to do, most people over 40 wouldn't have a job.
That's a pretty strong statement, but I would
Yeah,
say what I hear seems to bear that out.
it's especially now, it's been really with the recent job market, like it's been fairly awful for people that I know that are um I mean, kind of like Kelvin said, really, it's like 35 is the new the new 45. There's been a shift, and it's been really, really hard for some people with really good experience to get roles.
Shifting over to Vietnam, for people who are in the workforce, um, I understand that in pension coverage is fairly limited in Vietnam. It's still a growing economy. It's growing quickly, but it's not there yet. How do companies navigate with older employees who want to stay in the workforce and continue working, who cannot leave yet because of those, let's say, insufficient pension coverages?
I think it depends on the policy of each company. International companies they have different policy. Big local company they have different policy, and small local company they have different policies. So it totally depends on the company that like have like the policy for senior workers. And you are right. The pension scheme in Vietnam is not at that level to protect the senior professionals in Vietnam. But there are more opportunities for people in Vietnam if they are out of the workforce to start up than the US, I think, because it's a developing country. There are still a lot of opportunities for people to start up their own business. There are like a lot of like problems here to be solved. A lot of new demands from the consumers, and like to start a company here, with I have to say that like cheaper labor, it's easier. So many of the senior professional that I know after they getting out of professional life, they start up themselves, or they can be consultants, or they can be trainer for the companies. So it's also a way out for the senior professionals in a country like Vietnam after they are not like having opportunity to find a new job.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think it sounds like a natural progression when you take your experience that you've gained over the years and you reflect that back to the younger
Yeah.
generation. So looking ahead now a little bit into the future, um, let me start with you, Tamika. So what does an ideal age diverse workforce even look like in your national context?
Yeah, I think it looks like people that are in the workforce, like from 18 to 70, working on teams and respecting each other and getting to know each other and knowing that there are going to be differences and meeting people where they are. Because we don't have the opportunities as older workers to just go start our own thing as easily. When you're an older worker, that's when you really need that health insurance, right? So you get your insurance through your job, so you can't just, leave that. And so we do need to find a way where everyone can be collaborative, where everyone can say, I respect your opinion, right? And not just kind of be at each other and not just see from both sides. Like there's just the a really harsh environment right now where if you disagree with someone, it's like you might as well just like slit their throat. Like we'll never agree, right? And there needs to be a lot more conflict resolution, I think, in the workplace right now so that people can meet in the middle.
Right. And there does seem to be a lot of polarity and polarization.
Hmm.
I would have to say I agree. What about you, Kelvin? From a Vietnamese perspective, what does an ideal age diverse workforce look like there?
The ideal age diverse workforce. Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it's hard to like with my with what I know, it's hard for me to answer that questions. But as I said before, Vietnam had younger like workforce generations comparing to most of the economies in the world, and I think it's fortunate for a country like Vietnam to have that kind of younger workforce. So because we have like abundant of young workforce, we also have like older generation. Of course, the young workforce is not one of the advantage of Vietnam like in near futures, just like other country. Because of that, the leaders of the companies and organization in Vietnam have the like advantage to combine the workforce in their organizations. They can combine like young workforce with senior workforce. And thing is still good here, I think, in at least the next 5 to 10 years, that the age, the age gap is not a big deal for, the leaders of the companies in Vietnam because we still have abundant of, younger workforce. But in the next 10 years, with the birth rate of Vietnam like becoming decline in recent years, it's gonna be a big deal in the future. That's why the government now have to focus on increasing the birth rate. They don't want Vietnam to become the next Korea. They don't want Vietnam to become the next Japan. So from a demography point of view, the birth rate also like play important factor, and Vietnam is still now on the golden like age of workforce with the like the uh, suitable ratio between young and the old generation in the workforce.
It's interesting that you bring that up. I actually, because I was curious, I looked up the age profile of the population between the United States and Vietnam. And I looked at the percent of the population in each of the 10 years, right?
Hmm.
From 20 to
Hmm.
30, 30 to 40, et cetera. And it's extremely similar. I was actually quite surprised how
Wow.
similar they are in terms of the age profile. But you mentioned something with the birth rates and also the aging of the population. So this is my last question. So Tamika, and maybe this is I don't know if it's all doom and gloom, but the question is, do you see this becoming more a pronounced issue or less prevalent in the U.S. over the next decade? Given the rapid rise of technology.
With the rapid rise of technology, with the number of people that are older in the workforce versus younger, and the amount of people now who are like, babies, I'm not doing that. I think we might have some problems here soon, because it's unless AI is the big, equalizer and those roles aren't going to be needed, there aren't going to be enough people to fill those entry level roles because I mean our birth rates are going down, and not just the birth rates going down, but people entering the workforce is going down as well because of the new economy, right? The gig economy, the influencer economy. There aren't as many people going into the regular workforce as there was before.
No, that's a great observation. And those happen to be in that gig economy are probably more technically skilled because their whole,
Right.
gig job is tech based. How do you
Hmm.
see it, Kelvin, over the next decade or so? Do you see improvement or ageism becoming more of an issue in Vietnam?
Frankly speaking, I have to say it's gonna be like uh, a big deal in Vietnam in the next 10 years. As I mentioned, firstly, the birth rate is becoming declines in recent years. And secondly, I think for younger generation, the mindset between, I have to say like masculine and feminine is totally different. As Tamica mentioned, now with technologies, with the like influence of social media, uh, it's more equal between men and women. And with that, of course, the birth rate have to be, like affected because, like women, they are now stronger and, like they're equal to men, right? So in a family, there should be someone take care of the family. And if like with that equality, how can they have the behavior? How can they have the mindset to bring a child to the world? So I think even with the effort of the government, of the like policy makers, but with the mindset, I think that mindset is like spreading globally of the younger generation now. They can do nothing to avoid it. And the world gonna be older. Each nation gonna be older, and we have to accept the fact that it's gonna be like a big deal in any economies, including Vietnam, including US, including rich country, including developing countries, and we cannot avoid that. And let's see what next with the like development of AI and technologies. Let's see what next. I'm curious because we don't know. Maybe AI can help us to fix that, or they can totally like make that a bigger deal for all human.
No, so it sounds when I listen to both of you, you're coming from two different pasts in terms of your nations, but the trajectory, the direction seems to be
Hmm.
somewhat aligned. As culturally, certain things take root, like women equality, working in the workplace or working independently in their own companies. It sounds like there's this alignment happening globally, which is impacting both countries. So that's the last of my questions. What I wanted to do is maybe give each of you a moment to kind of give your final word. Summarize from your perspective, and I think I'll start with you, Tamika.
So I think in summary, treat people right, no matter what color the hair is.
I vote for that one personally.
Yeah.
And how about the final word from you, Kelvin?
I think like for any generation nowadays, the most important thing is look inside yourself, not look outside. Because anything comes, if you are strong enough inside, you can getting through. For the older generation and for the younger generation, if they look inside themselves enough, they will find their way. And that's my final words for like the postcard today. Yep.
And I think that's a universal a universal message for everybody. It doesn't matter which time zone they happen to live in.
Right.
Well, I think with that, we're reaching the end of the episode. I wanted to thank both of you for your time. One of you in the morning, one of you in the evening. it's it's an experiment, the first time on this podcast to have a three-way conversation, especially across the globe like this. But thank you for joining. It's been fantastic.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much, Joe.
So, and with that, I'd like to thank the listeners for joining us today. And until next week, keep on driving. Thank you for joining us on today's journey. Please remember to like and subscribe to the Auto Ethnographer and leave us a rating or comment. For more information, visit our website at auto-ethnographer.com. You can also follow on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.